want to make the argument that tobacco is to cancer as pesticide is to colony collapse disorder. To me, they're really the same thing. Now, the difference is, as this event that pesticide is directly responsible for has far-reaching consequences. And it is, in my view, a national security issue, because ultimately it is threatening our food supply, because without pollinators, bees and other insects like butterflies, and there's bumblebees, and there's 20,000 plus what's known as solitary bee species that no one is tracking that are collapsing too, right? That we're threatening our national security via our food supply. In my other argument, and my other warning to pesticide companies, is just as tobacco is held liable, if you're a stakeholder, if you are someone who has bought shares in a pesticide company, I'm just saying, watch out, because these guys are going to get hit hard. And when they get hit hard, their share price is going to plummet. And it's coming. It's coming, just as it did with tobacco. So, tobacco now makes their money out of the United States, out of Europe. They make money basically in China, in Asia, in India. They probably make money in Japan. They smoke a lot in Japan, but not in the educated environments, folks who are in the know. And the other thing too, I'm gonna, as a warning to these big pesticide companies like Bayer and Monsanto and Mitsubishi Chemical and the host of other, there's 6 big ones, and that just as states went after tobacco and cost them billions of dollars, states are going to go after pesticide companies and cost them billions of dollars, because the pesticide companies know the harm they're doing. All right? They're ignoring it for the sake of profits for a few stakeholders. And the thing is, if anyone really wants to look, the EPA data that has followed the honey production in the United States since the 1940s basically is the smoking gun. The other thing you can look at is the market diffusion of pesticide, right? Basically is the mirror image of this diffusion, right? So as bees declined over the last 60 years, they've been declining for 60 years, right? The market diffusion of pesticides globally has gone up, where in some cases now, in many, 90% of the pesticide for major crops is systemic pesticides. And these new super pesticides, which were, they hit the market in the 1990s, now have themselves reached what we call in economics, or in startups, or or what we term the law of market diffusion, is they are now late majority. The late majority folks are using. And there's a number of reasons why. One is, for a lot of cases, patents only last 15 years. Well, do the math. If products were released which were patented in the 1990s, they've lost their patent, which means generic, cheaper versions, other companies can take that innovation and basically run with it and create a cheaper product, maybe an inferior product. So what's happened now is, just since the 1990s to now, the market diffusion of the new super pesticides, and let me talk about them a little bit. One is they're water soluble. So whereas the old pesticides and herbicides would just sit on top of the water and get washed out the ocean, right? And these pesticides actually mix into the water. They get into the roots, they get into the fruit, they get into the plant, they get into the tea leaves, the green tea leaves, the grapes that you eat, everything else. You can't wash them off. And what happens is, they've been shown that very, 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 very small amounts of this systemic pesticides, so small that it's undetectable, right, will affect bees. And why is that? Well, because unlike mammals, bees, insects lack a detox gene, number one. Number two, these this amount, especially with bees, will build up. So bees will bring it back in the pollen. And my argument, actually, the most damaging component to insects, or especially like the bees, that store and create nectar, they're putting this poison, which is in the nectar, which is mainly in the water, okay, and their hive. And they're poisoning and weakening their hive, because very small amounts will make them more susceptible to deformed wing virus, to varroa mites, and other host of other infections where they can't get stronger, right? And you know, I'm running bees colony, basically are surrounded by pesticides, and I'm having a very tough time building a strong colony. Many of the queens have died, and so on, you know, for it. So I know I've got, you know, hundreds of videos showing the lack of bees in Japan and plenty of flowers. So the idea of planting flowers is dumb, because if the root cause is pesticides, then right, that's the root cause. The systemic problems are everything else. See, tobacco made the same argument. Oh, you know, cancer is so different. How could something like tobacco cause cancer? Yada yada yada. They're not. They're indirect relations to one another, just as pesticide and the collapse of bees. But you stop smoking, what happens? You stop cancer. You stop pesticides, what happened? You stop colony collapse disorder. It's that simple, people.